Look at that. I try to be active. I try to go out and just take care of myself and go to the gym and work out. And all of a sudden, the Reds trade Tucker Barnhart. Oh my gosh, we have a lot to talk about. And to help me do that, I have the host of the Locked On Tigers podcast. He is Scott Bentley. By the way, I'm Jeff Carr, host here of the Locked On Reds podcast. Thanks for finding us today right here on YouTube, or if this is your first time listening on your favorite podcasting app. Thanks for making Locked On Reds and Locked On Tigers your hashtag first listen, and make sure that you are subscribed everywhere you get your podcast, because we're free and available everywhere. All right, we've got a lot to talk about. Let me roll the graphic and we'll get to talking about Tucker Barnhart being a Detroit Tiger.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, without further ado, let's bring him in. He is the host of the Locked On Tigers podcast, and he knows all things up there for Detroit. Scott, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. I'm pretty pleased with my day so far, if I do say so myself. How are you doing?
Well, I've got to admit that I'm a little bit sad. Now, I saw this coming with the emergence of Tyler Stevenson. It was pretty much a done deal that Tucker was at least going to get a diminished role. And I thought there were plenty of teams out there that would not ask him to take a diminished role. So I kind of figured he'd move on in some capacity. But golly, the day after the World Series, I was like, that was quick. Give me your initial reaction to this trade, and then I'll give you mine.
My initial reaction, I think really the most of the fan base's initial reaction up here is just amazing. Like A plus. Everyone's super excited and pumped about it. I know we'll get into the details of why as we go on, but this fan base is excited, man. This is a team that Jake Rogers is out for all of next season with Tommy John surgery, and he has kind of been penciled in as the catcher of the future ever since he was brought in the Justin Verlander trade in 2017, and put up a pretty respectable season this year, but obviously know him next season, and we now have a very good framing catcher for a starting rotation of a lot of young arms. People are pretty excited, and I think I agree with that. I think they have every reason to be. We're pretty pumped.
I got to tell you, when I saw the initial report on this trade, I was surprised at how quickly it happened. I wasn't surprised that it happened. I know that there are teams like the Tigers and the Marlins, and I think the Yankees are on this list as well, that were looking for that everyday catcher, not every day, but your catcher one,
For sure.
to kind of lead a pitching staff and be the mainstay behind the plate defensively, and whatever he gives you offensively, you count that as gravy. And Tucker Barnhart's the perfect catcher for that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's going to go to Detroit and hit 30 home runs and 100 RBIs and he's going to hit over 300. That's absolutely not who he is. He's a 250, 240, less than that hitter. He's going to slug around 400. He's going to get on base a decent amount of time. He's got a pretty good plate discipline to him. But more than that, he has been kind of one of the team leaders for the Reds over these last couple of years. And I really wanted for him to be part of a successful Reds team, and successful being, they make the playoffs, they win a playoff series, because he has just worked through all the muck that was the rebuilding years of 2014 through 2019. And he worked through the shortened season where the Reds tried to go all in 2020, and then the world had other ideas. And in 2021, they just didn't quite have enough. They were built by their front office to have flaws, and they just couldn't overcome those flaws. So I hated that for him personally, because I felt like he's one of those guys, like, he put in the time. He's like that really loyal girlfriend who was with a crappy dude who was just like, I'm going to help fix him. I know I am. but just realizes he's got to get out of here. So I'm happy that he's moving on to a team that really looks like they're on the come up. And I want to talk about that here in a minute. But let me get your take, because I tried to read the Fangraphs profile on him very quickly, and that's not going to give me the whole understanding. What do you know about Nick Quintana? Quintana or Quintana, or however it's pronounced? I apologize for not knowing that right away. But what kind of value does he bring to the Reds?
Yeah, so he's an interesting one for sure, and I think that he is someone where it made a lot of sense for the Tigers to move on from him, but I still believe that he has potential to give you value down the road as well. He was our second round pick in 2019, I believe, top of the second round there. He's it's interesting. So he has versatility, which is good. He has versatility in the field. He's played a lot of third, but has also shown that he can maybe play a little bit of shortstop. He's played some second base. He's played at both corners. He's been around across the lower levels of the minors and then in winter ball and stuff. Like, he's experimented at different places in the field, which was obviously the more positions you can play in the minors, the better going forward. That's never a bad thing. The biggest question marks for him are all with the bat. He actually has a pretty good eye. You'll find that out pretty quickly. He has a pretty respectable plate discipline, which I love. As all my listeners know, I am a slappy for a guy who can draw some walks. So that's all fine and dandy. The biggest thing is he has yet to prove, really in any capacity, that he can be a consistent, even average hitter at the minor league levels, which I know sounds really harsh and is probably not what you wanted to hear. But
Okay.
but the only trait that he has currently is that discipline, and it's good. It is a massive plus trait for him. But it really seems like in his current stage in development, if you just pound the strike zone, he's not going to do too much with it. He'll run into an occasional fastball. He does have some pop that he can display at times, but I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking about a guy who in single A this year in 82 games hit sub 200 and had a mid 600s OPS in single A, and he's 24, gonna be 25 next season. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like at the end of next season, I guess he just turned 24. So it's not, you definitely are not getting one of the prize Tigers prospects that we've had over the last couple of years. And I think it really does make a ton of sense that the Tigers moved on from him, and he was very much expendable. But I also don't want to make it sound like there's like zero chance that he will ever be anything either. He's shown versatility, and in my eyes, if you have the plate discipline, there's always a chance that you can make something out of it. So that is, I guess, my initial kind of breakdown of him. You're going to get an eye. You're going to get some versatility in the field. But the biggest hurdle that he's going to have to overcome is honestly just hitting strikes.
That's one thing that I wondered, because looking at, his profile, it looked like on the hitting grades and stuff like that, it said 35 with a future value of 50, and his overall future value of like 40 plus, something like that. I'm like, okay, sounds like a utility guy. And to be honest with you, from a Reds fan's perspective, we understood Tucker was moving on. And if he were, if the Reds were not going to pick up his option, and if I don't think they can make a qualifying offer at that point, but they weren't going to, because it was going to be 18 million, and that would be way too much for him. So they were going to lose him for nothing. So this is kind of one of those quintessential, like, the Reds got something wherein they would have had nothing. But I'm curious because, and this is something I want to talk to you about here in a minute, because the Tigers look like they're on the come up. And based on some quotes from the Reds general manager, Nick Krall, after this trade, a little worried about where the Reds position is. I want to talk to you about that here in a minute. Before we talk about that, though, I want to tell you listening, and Scott too, is Spotify Green Room. If you haven't downloaded the Green Room app on your mobile device today, it's fantastic. You get to talk to other fans. You can talk to media types. I think there's players on there and everything like that. they've got breaking news. They've got game chats. You can talk like a watch party type thing. And, for big stuff like this and trades and things that are going to be happening this offseason, there'll be green rooms abound. You can download the Green Room app, like I said, on any mobile device today. It used to be only iOS, but now it's like Android and everything. So that's a good thing. And you can join a room after you create your profile, in which you can link your Twitter to as well. And you can follow your favorite hosts, media, players, all that good stuff there on the Spotify Green Room app. As they always say, Scott, Spotify Green Room is changing the way that we talk sports. All right, so we kind of broke down the trade, and I think, too, also something that I forgot to mention, but I think that anybody who reads anything about this trade will know, the Tigers are getting an awesome dude to help lead their young pitching staff. This dude, Tucker, is a brilliant worker of the dudes on the mound. He knows how to kind of calm them down whenever things are getting a little bit rough. And he's a pretty good caller of games too. So I'm looking forward to watching him with guys like Casey Mize and Tariq Skubal and all those fellas. I do want to say though, the quote, and I'm going to lead off with this for segment 2 because the quote just absolutely takes this where I'm an optimistic person, Scott. I know that, by the way, your first time on the podcast. I love having you here.
Yes, sir.
I've kind of been deemed and dubbed and to many people's dismays as an over-optimistic Reds fan because I love my Reds. But even this really kind of gives me pause because Nick Kroll talking about the Tucker trade, and I'll read the whole quote just to give everybody context. He said this: "Trading Tucker was a very difficult decision. Having been drafted and developed by the Reds, our entire organization has a connection to him, and our fans love him." And here's the part that I hate. "But going into 2022, we must align our payroll to our resources and continue focusing on scouting and developing young talent from within our system. We are grateful for Tucker's contributions on the field and in the communities throughout Reds country. He will be missed." Yes, he will. But oh my goodness, if I haven't heard that quote before, and it was during years in which the Reds were not expected to contend. I'm sure you've heard this over the last couple of years as well, in some respect. Yeah.
Certainly have my experience with that quote, let me tell you.
And this is coming off of 2 years where, yeah, they were fun because we thought the Reds were contenders and they made the expanded playoffs in 2020 from a shortened season. But if that is all we got, oh my, this sounds like a general manager preparing a fan base for for rebuilding. I hate that word. Oh, I hate that word. But I will say I think that that's the kind of thing, and I tweeted this, that every time Nick Kroll, because Nick Kroll said things last season like, oh, we're going to get a shortstop. They didn't get a shortstop. Oh, we're repurposing the money from the relievers that we traded and non-tendered and got nothing for them. They never spent that money. I'm just getting to the point where he's like my mechanic who's telling me what's wrong with my car and how much I'm going to have to pay him to fix my car. And now I'm just like, no, Scott. All right, real quick, man. Tell me about the Tigers on the come up because I'm just,
I mean, I'll start with the fact that everything that you are feeling and hearing, I've been hearing for half a decade now. So I very much feel you, and I know that's probably not what you wanted to hear because you've seen the Tigers product the last 5 years. But yeah, it's that is definitely a heck of a quote by your GM. Our GM, Al Avila, also made a quote has already released a statement after the Barnhart trade. And I thought it was actually pretty interesting. They acknowledged that catcher was a massive need going into next season. And apparently him and AJ have had Barnhart circled for a while now. They said that they've been talking about ways to fill the catcher role for the entire postseason, and Barnhart's name was someone that kept coming up over and over and over again as a very good option that we didn't think we would have to give up too terribly much to acquire. Obviously, the free agent catcher market this year is absolutely horrible, so that they went the route of a trade, and it looks like it's something that could benefit the team a lot. And yeah, the Tigers this upcoming season, this is probably the most excited this fan base has been for an offseason in 5 years, I would say, pretty comfortably. And this is the most excited I've been for a season. The 2022 season is probably the most excited I've been in, we'll say, 8 years. Like I was in high school the last time that I was probably this excited. I don't even know if I had my driver's license yet. The last time that I was this excited for an off season, or for a regular season going into next year. So people are super excited. AJ Hinch came in, and I know everybody's got an opinion on AJ, but he came in and immediately turned this organization around. We pretty much fired everyone, like at every level, like down to like water boys in single A, like literally everyone, top to bottom. Let everybody go, and AJ came in and instilled his own system and brought in his own guys, and it has worked wonders. This team significantly overperformed this year with not still a ton of talent, and now we're heading into an off season in which our owner said that spending is something that we're actually going to do for the first time again in half a decade. And there's a ton of excitement around the team. And again, like you said earlier, bringing in Barnhart specifically is so awesome for this young pitching staff. We have the three-headed monster of former top 20 prospects in Casey Mize, Tarek Skubal, and Matt Manning, all in the majors and all going to be in the majors on opening day next year. And now to instead of putting Wilson Ramos and like Austin Romine and just like horrible framing and defensive catchers behind the plate and horrible game callers and people. Now we're bringing in Tucker Barnhart, who is a fantastic framer, one of the best framers in the league, a two-time Gold Glove winner, and someone that is an incredible leader of a staff. And I think all of that to kick off an offseason has this fan base incredibly excited.
I forgot about Matt Manning. That's true. He's awesome too. Yeah, and speaking of spending money, there's going to be a right fielder. I'm like 99.9% sure who's going to be available that the Tigers have some familiarity with. I believe his last name rhymes with Blastianos. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what the Tigers bring to the table this next year, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, I think one of the I know we kind of talked about it earlier. I guess for you, like what direction, if they go into that kind of, like, dare I say, rebuild territory, like what comes next? Like you obviously you don't bring back Nick then, if that's the direction you want to go. And then on top of that, like if this is a domino effect, what do you think could be next going forward?
This is the hard part for me because the Reds' biggest contracts are very immovable. Joey Votto's got a no trade clause, and quite frankly, I wouldn't want them to move Joey Votto anyway. He just had an amazing year, but he's got a no trade clause. Moose played terribly, has been hurt for the last 2 years, and he's got to figure out. All right, he's really got to earn the money that he's got. I mean, it's all guaranteed, but if I'm another team and, Nick Kroll calls me like, hey, what do you think about Moose? I'd be like, I don't think much of him. You got anybody else? Like, not going to happen. So I don't know about him. Eugenio Suarez is a possibility because you could sell somebody on his September. But all of these guys that are at the top of the payroll that you could cut a bunch of money on are going to be almost impossible to move simply because of varying factors of which other teams would not be super interested in. So, and you're also talking about, which I hate to say this because he was a guy that I was so excited about whenever they got him 2 years ago. Shogo Akiyama is going to be making $8 million next year. And he had a OPS this last season, I think, that was under 400. So yeah, that's not going to do much for us either. It's a lot of dead money that this might be a really frustrating year. And I know that I'm going like super scorched earth negative on this, and there's some excitement to have about these Reds with Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo coming up. Hopefully Jose Barrero taking the reins. That's one thing that I look at, this quote that Nick Kroll had talking about resources and aligning them and blah, blah, blah. They're going to stick with the guys in house. So Jose Barrero is going to be an everyday player, whether that be a shortstop or center field, it remains to be seen. But it's a lot of just, even if they want to do the whole R word, they're going to have to find some really crappy trades, like trading Moose for a media cart or something, because another team's not going to pick up his contract if they actually want something of substance in return. And I find it interesting because we mentioned how quickly this deal went down one day after the World Series, and it's a trade. It's not a signing, but it brings a question to me that I want to ask to you here in just a minute pertaining to everything that's going on this offseason. Because, yes, there are teams that are on the come up. There are teams that are looking to rebuild. There are teams that want to do stuff. But we have this huge cloud looming over everything that is the CBA. I want to get your take on that here in just a minute. Before we talk about that, though, I want to tell you, and Scott, you can help me with this one because I love talking about Built Bar. Built Bar,
The best.
the best tasting protein bar on the market. And when I say protein bar, Scott, is this thing like jockey and just you're going to eat it and you'll be like, oh, whatever, it's healthy?
Well, considering I have one for lunch just about every day, I would not just eat chalk. So no, it's covered in 100% real chocolate. It's fantastic. It's absolute. The mixed box is like a fun little grab bag game. You just play with yourself every morning. Like, what flavor am I getting today? It's absolutely amazing.
It's great. And when you talk about flavors, Cherry Barcia, I've always said is my favorite. Really close to it is coconut. I don't know if you're a coconut guy. I know that there's a lot of people that really get upset when I say the word coconut. So
Controversial.
sorry, but not sorry because I love coconut. And then also cookie dough chunk, which was a limited time flavor. I don't know if they still have that available, but they've got all these great limited flavors that you can check out on their website. And Scott, what's that website?
Built.com.
Built.com. And we got a promo code for you. You can save a couple of bucks with the promo code LOCKED15. You'll save 15% off your next order. And you can get a mixed box. You can figure out what your favorite flavor is, or you can get a whole box of one flavor. That way you've got a stash of Cherry Barcia like I've got. Oh, Built Bar is just amazing. Go check them out today at Built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15. And speaking of promo codes, Scott, there's another great one to use, especially when you're talking about making money. You can make some money off your sports knowledge. It's over at betonline.ag. And do you know what that promo code is, Scott?
That would be what? Locked on.
Locked on. Yeah, locked on. And you'll get 50% more. They've kind of moved the goalposts a little bit, but it's 50% more on your initial deposit. So if you put in 10, they'll give you 5. If you put in 100, they'll give you 50. I don't know why you'd only put in 10, but yeah, whatever. That's the first thing that came to mind. But go to betonline.ag today and set up your profile with that promo code locked on. You can make some money off some great sports lines.
Great ones. They just released World Series for next year. You can already get a head start there.
I'm guessing that they've got like the Astros and the
Dodgers
Braves
at the top.
Dodgers
at the top. Braves, I think, are currently slated in as the 4th, I want to say. I think it's Dodgers, Astros, Yankees, Braves, or Braves, Yankees, somewhere around there. So, yeah.
I know that the Braves, I don't know that it's that big of a question. Like, I thought it was weird that they were saying on the broadcast last night, that Joe Buck was saying on the broadcast, he was just like, yeah, this might be the last time Freddie Freeman hits a home run as a Brave.
Like every single expiring contract.
I was like,
Joe Buck,
there ain't no way.
It's just everyone's gone.
Everyone. Nobody's playing for the Braves next year. No, I firmly believe Freddie Freeman will be a Brave. I don't know about Jorge Soler or any of those guys, but definitely think that Freeman will. But yeah, so you've got those World Series odds you can jump on. You've got great lines for the NFL, for NCAA football. There's also a great UFC card coming up this Saturday as well that you can jump on. That's at betonline.ag. Set up your profile with the promo code locked on and make some money off your sports knowledge today. All right. Speaking of money, I wanted to approach this more from the aspect of why this trade works so quickly, and that is because there is a lockout that looms on December the 2nd. They've already said that it's a high likelihood that it's going to happen simply because the CBA expires on December the 1st, and they're about as far apart on an agreement as the East and the West. I was trying to think of a better thing for that, but yeah, maybe Odell Beckham Jr. and the Cleveland Browns. I don't know. They're really far apart, and it's probably going to happen. So there was a question of, are teams going to make a mad dash and trying to get whoever they can, whether it be free agents or trades, or will there be a freeze already before the actual freeze takes place? So do you think, Scott, that this is an indication that teams are going to do whatever they possibly can to get whoever they can before December the 2nd?
Yeah, that's a great question and a great point. I think that it definitely is something that's going to be in the back of everyone's minds. I don't know signings wise if people are going to shove out because it's money, right? I don't know if
Right.
signing wise it's going to be the same, but as far as trades go, I mean, there's already talks that if they're too far apart heading into December, there could just be no winter meetings. And last year it was all over Zoom and nothing really happened. So like that would be heading on 2 consecutive years. The next winter meetings will be the first in person winter meetings would be the first in 3 years potentially. Um, I think you might see the hot stove as far as trades go be a lot more prevalent and kind of like you said, kind of shoved into this like next 3 week kind of stretch because people are afraid that if a lockout happens, they're just going to be twiddling their thumbs and have nothing to do until people figure it out. So I definitely think that that could be a factor. And like I said, it was really interesting hearing our front office come out and say that that Barnhart's been someone that they've had interest in for a while. This kind of seemed like one that that the Tigers were gonna kind of try and jump on and get ahead of the curve on um, right after the World Series ended, kind of always. And so it does make the next couple of weeks really interesting if this is a sign of things to come.
I'm intrigued too. I agree with you. I think it's more trades than it is signings because I know that one of the key hangups and one of the key points that they're going to be talking about is how do they structure salaries going forward? Are they going to create a salary cap, which I know the players vehemently oppose, but are they going to do something that kind of promotes competitive balance and tries to get rid of the idea of tanking, which I don't know that you can firmly get rid of it because the NBA has a salary cap and they still have tanking teams,
Hmm.
but try to at least decentivize tanking. And what does that all mean for free agency? Plus, you could sign a guy right now and have to give up a competitive balance pick. Who knows if that's even a thing next year, right?
Right.
That might be a
Yeah,
weird
there's a
thing too.
lot, and then you take a look at like, I mean, for our perspective, we have two of the best prospects in baseball are both supposed to debut for us next season, and
Right.
as it currently stands, we would probably see them in late May. But if the service manipulation time thing gets adjusted or taken away, then they might just be on the opening day roster. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
there's a lot of stuff with that. Um, that could change. And then, like you said, the competitive balance thing, then I mean, there's even like talks about it. It maybe a better way to make it competitive is a salary floor. And then if you have a salary floor, then you're talking about teams that have to spend. So then there's people that would be getting lower contracts, maybe even getting slightly overpaid just so that teams can reach that salary floor. There's a lot of stuff that could come out of it. And that's why I'm not sure on the free agency front it would change much, but in the trade market, I think you're right. I think it could affect a lot.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how this all plays out. And I keep saying I'm like, look, whatever the details are, I just want baseball back. That's really plain and simple where I'm coming
Hmm.
from that. So I'm interested to see what they do. Quick question before we get finished up here. What is the next step for the Tigers? You know that this is going to be an aggressive offseason. What is kind of the next check on the wish list? I know that, catcher probably wasn't the first thing, but what's next?
Well, the biggest one is shortstop, without a doubt, in anyone's mind. That is by far, and we've known for like a year now that it's shortstop. Everybody, last offseason, like the beginning of last offseason, this fan base looked at this insane shortstop free agency market and said, we don't have one of those in our entire organization. We're trying to take steps forward and get back to relevancy and get back to competitive baseball. The team took a huge step forward this year. It is absolutely shortstop without a doubt in anyone's mind. That they definitely have a hole. They're going to have to sign a starting pitcher too. The caliber is kind of argued between the fan base of a lot of people want Verlander to come home just because of the nostalgia of that. But without even remote hesitation, it is shortstop. We have had one of the worst shortstop situations, comfortably the worst in all of baseball for the last 3 or 4 years. And it's the best free agent shortstop class in the history of baseball. So that really lines up well for a team in our situation and is definitely the next step. So you go out and you spend big money. You bring in one of those shortstops. You bring in one of a starting pitcher or two. You got catcher covered. And then you go into next season and you call up Torkelson and Green. You put all of those potentially 5-6 pieces all together at once, and you make magic, baby.
It's going to be interesting to watch. And talking about shortstop, Reds fans can relate because last couple of years, that's been a key need for the Reds. And to be honest with you, it's something that you could sell me on a little bit if the Reds were to go out and make a move and get a shortstop, because Jose Barrero looks ready. Jose Barrero is the shortstop of the future. That's what we've been hearing for the last couple of years. They just wanted him to be ready. And now it looks like that should be that time. The only problem is he still has some questions about his plate discipline and what does he look like when he's in the batter's box. He is athletic. He is amazing in the field. But what are we going to get out of him whenever he goes to pick up a bat? That's the biggest question. So maybe that's something that they look at. But to be honest with you, the next move, I mean, they're obviously going to need a backup catcher too, because they don't really have anybody in system. I thought maybe Mark Colesbury, who played for the Olympic team, but he's not quite there with the bat yet either. So who knows, maybe paging former obscure Reds legend Ryan LaVarnway. In case you didn't know, Scott, he played like all of 2 games. I think it might even only have been 1 game that he played, but he hit 3 home runs.
Reds legend, that's all it takes.
Exactly.
All it takes is a game, baby.
It was a fantastic game. So, yeah, paging Ryan LaVarnway. And then they obviously need to do a lot with the bullpen. Hopefully, if they can sign or trade for a closer-type dude, then everything else kind of falls into place because they've got a lot of middle relief guys. They don't really have that one dude that you're looking at and saying, that's our dude. If we need an out, he can go out and get it. They've got a couple of guys who might be able to get 1 out, but if we're talking about 3, then that gets a little hairy.
Sure.
So, and then they've got these quotes about money. And who knows if any of those checklist items are even going to matter. So we're going to talk more about that here on the Locked On Reds podcast. And thank you guys so much for watching and for listening. Scott, thank you for coming in and talking. And,
yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, it materialized pretty quickly. The trade happened, and we were like, hey, let's do it, baby. Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah, it's the strength of the Locked On Podcast Network.
It
Thanks
is.
for making Locked On Reds and Locked On Tigers your #first listen of the day. Now, for your second listen, go check out Sully and Locked On MLB. I'm sure he's talking about the World Series. He's going to have plenty of hot takes about the collective bargaining agreement and all that good stuff, too. And he's got past baseball knowledge for days. He should write an encyclopedia. I'm not even talking about a book. Like, I think Sully should write like an encyclopedia about baseball. He's got so much knowledge. All right. But as for Scott, I'm Jeff. This is Locked On Tigers and Locked On Reds. We'll talk to you guys